The Great Potato Time-Lapse. A 120-day journey and 5.000-year legacy. Prologue. The seed of an idea. The gardener's log, day 0. The first spud. The decision to plant potatoes this year felt like a step back in time. It was a desire for a deeper connection to the food on my plate. To understand the intricate journey of a staple crop from the ground to the kitchen. My first act was to acquire the seed potatoes. Holding them in my hands, I marveled at the firm, slightly dusty skin and the small, nascent sprouts emerging from their eyes. These were not mere groceries but a promise of a future harvest. A tiny portal to a history spanning thousands of years. The cool, earthy feel of them in my palm offered a tangible sense of anticipation. A feeling of embarking on a significant project. I knew the journey would demand patience and faith. But the potential reward, the simple, honest taste of homegrown potatoes, was more than enough to start this great experiment in my own little patch of earth. The humble tuber's global reign. The potato, botanically known as Solanum tuberosum, stands as an agricultural cornerstone for a planet of over 1 billion people. Its unassuming appearance belies its immense significance as one of the world's most vital food crops. An essential source of sustenance in both developed and developing nations, while some sources rank it as the world's third most important food crop. Other metrics place it at number 4, after rice, wheat, and maize. This slight variation in ranking underscores the nuanced ways different agricultural organizations measure global impact. But it does nothing to diminish the potato's undeniable importance and ubiquitous presence. Beyond its sheer scale of cultivation, grown in over 150 countries, the potato offers a rich nutritional profile that has sustained civilizations for centuries. A testament to its value. It is a key source of calories, particularly in regions where other staple crops may be more difficult to cultivate. The potato is rich in carbohydrates, providing a primary source of energy, and contains numerous micronutrients crucial for a healthy diet, including vitamins B1, B6, and C, as well as minerals such as potassium, copper, manganese, and phosphorus. Furthermore, its high water content, nearly 80%, contributes to its naturally low-calorie, low-fat nature, containing roughly half the calories of an equivalent portion of cooked rice or pasta. The crop's versatility is a significant part of its success, with countless culinary applications from boiling and baking to roasting, mashing, and frying, making it a fixture on menus worldwide. Phase 1. The sprout of life, days 1 to 30. The gardener's log, week 1. The earth's embrace. With the seed potatoes prepared, the real work began. I chose a sunny spot in my garden with loose, well-draining soil, knowing that a soggy environment could spell disaster. The research had warned of the risk of rot in poorly drained soil. A common mistake for first-time growers. Using a garden hoe, I dug a trench about 6 inches deep, creating a bed for the journey to begin. I had cut the larger seed potatoes into roughly 2-inch square pieces, each containing at least 1 or 2 eyes, which are the dormant buds of new plants. This practical step, I had learned, was essential for maximizing the yield from each potato. I carefully placed each piece in the trench, cut side down with the eyes pointing up, spacing them about 12 inches apart. A small amount of low nitrogen, high phosphorus fertilizer was sprinkled into the trench, a strategic move to encourage strong root and tuber growth from the very start. With the potatoes nestled in their new home, I gently covered them with soil and gave them a deep, satisfying drink of water. Now, the waiting began. The first few weeks were a test of patience. As the surface of the soil remained stubbornly still, it was a silent, subterranean process, demanding a faith in nature's unseen work. It was a time for observation, not intervention. The roots of history and science. The potato's remarkable journey began millennia ago. As a member of the nightshade family, Solanaceae, the potato, Solanum tuberosum, shares a genetic lineage with familiar crops like the tomato, pepper, and eggplant, as well as more notorious plants like tobacco and the toxic nightshade itself. The plant is botanically an annual, meaning its above-ground parts die each year. However, its perennial nature in the wild allows it to survive by using its underground tubers to regrow in the next season. a characteristic leveraged by growers who harvest the tubers annually. Its origins are definitively traced to the Peruvian-Bolivian Andes, where archaeological evidence suggests domestication by indigenous peoples as early as 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. The potato became a staple crop for the Incas, who developed an ingenious freeze-drying technique to create chuño at high altitudes. This method allowed them to store and preserve the crop for long periods, providing a reliable food source for a growing population. When the potato was introduced to Europe in the late 16th century by Spanish conquistadors, its path to global dominance was not straightforward. Andean potatoes were adapted to the short days and long nights of their mountainous homeland. In Europe, the long summer days of the northern latitudes posed a fundamental biological challenge: the potato plant's tuberization process, which is critical for forming the edible part of the plant, was inhibited. The inability to produce large tubers in these new climates initially relegated the potato to a botanical curiosity. However, a crucial genetic variant of the Saint-1 Congolese Franks gene eventually emerged, allowing the plant to tuberize effectively during Europe's long summer days. This genetic adaptation was not present in the earliest potatoes brought to Europe, nor in modern Andean varieties. The plants with this new variant were favored by growers and quickly spread across the continent. This genetic leap, a quiet but monumental moment in agricultural history, was the key that unlocked the potato's potential to become a global crop, leading to its eventual propagation across Europe and beyond, and forever changing the course of human history. The subterranean awakening. The first stage of the potato's life cycle is the period of sprout development, a time of unseen but intense activity lasting from planting to the emergence of the first shoots, typically 15 to 30 days. Once the seed potato piece is placed in the soil, it provides the initial nourishment for the dormant buds, or eyes, to awaken and form sprouts. Simultaneously, a vigorous root system begins to develop, branching out to absorb water and nutrients from the surrounding soil. This root system becomes the primary lifeline for the plant as the stored starches within the original seed piece are depleted. The emergence of the first stems from the ground, which can take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks depending on the climate, is the visual cue that this foundational work has been successfully completed. It is at this point that the main stem and the first leaves begin to grow. But the rapid, visible growth of the leafy canopy is merely a consequence of the intensive preparation that occurred entirely underground. The gardener's patient waiting during this time is, in effect, a quiet act of trust in this remarkable subterranean process, a testament to the fact that the most important growth is not always what can be seen on the surface. 3. Phase 2. The green canopy, days 30 to 60. The gardener's log, week 4. Hilling against the sun. Just as the research promised, a few weeks after planting, a dark green shoot emerged from the soil. The relief was palpable. From that point on, the growth was explosive. The small, unassuming sprouts transformed into a lush, green canopy, a beautiful sight that hinted at the productivity below. But my work was not done. The key next step was to hill the plants, a process of mounding soil or compost up around the base of the growing stems. This was more than just a chore, it was a crucial act of protection. The new potatoes, I had learned, form on underground stems called stolons, which grow above the original seed potato. If these new tubers are exposed to sunlight, they will turn green, a sign that they are producing a bitter-tasting, slightly poisonous compound called glycol colloids. So, with a shovel, I carefully pushed soil from the sides, building small mounds of earth to cover the stems and leaves, ensuring only the top portion of the foliage remained exposed to the sun. The process was practical and deeply satisfying, a direct physical connection to the plant's needs. I was a collaborator in its hidden work, building a shield of earth to protect the precious bounty forming below. Fueling growth, the mechanics of photosynthesis and nutrition. Once the leafy shoots emerge, the potato plant enters its period of rapid vegetative growth, stage 2, which typically lasts for 4 to 5 weeks. This is when the plant's above-ground foliage expands significantly, acting as a solar engine for the entire organism. Photosynthesis, the process of converting sunlight, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and water from the soil into energy takes center stage. This surplus energy is then channeled downward to fuel the development of the underground stems and, eventually, the tubers. For this process to be efficient, the plant requires a balanced diet of essential nutrients. The three primary macronutrients, nitrogen, N, phosphorus, P, and potassium, K, are vital for different stages of growth. Nitrogen is critical for fueling the rapid development of the leafy canopy. But a delicate balance must be maintained. The paradox of potato cultivation is that excessive nitrogen can be detrimental, leading to lush, vigorous vine growth at the expense of tuber development. In contrast, phosphorus is crucial for the development of both the root system and the tubers themselves. And potatoes are particularly demanding of potassium, which promotes tuber size, disease resistance, and overall plant health. The home gardener's task is not simply to provide nutrients but to do so with a nuanced understanding of these specific requirements, ensuring the plant allocates its energy to the parts that will be harvested. The ideal environment: soil, water, and temperature. Potatoes thrive in specific environmental conditions that directly influence their growth and the quality of the final harvest. The ideal soil is a loose, well-draining sandy loam. A poorly drained soil can lead to waterlogged conditions that encourage disease and result in poorly shaped tubers. In addition to texture, soil pH is a critical factor. Potatoes prefer slightly acidic conditions, with a pH range of 5.0 to 6.5. This preference is not just a matter of taste, it is a key defense against common scab. Streptomyces scabiei, a widespread bacterial blemish disease that flourishes in neutral or alkaline soils with a pH of 7.0 or higher. To counter this, gardeners can amend their soil with materials like elemental sulfur or peat moss to lower the pH. Water management is another crucial balancing act for a successful potato crop. While the plants require a consistent supply of moisture, approximately 1 inch of water per week, they do not tolerate soggy or saturated conditions, which can lead to rot. The plant's water needs fluctuate throughout its life cycle. Water is essential during the vegetative growth and tuber bulking stages, when the plant may use 2 to 3 inches of water per week. Especially in high temperatures, water shortages during this critical time can cause issues like growth cracks and malformed tubers, and even make the plant more susceptible to diseases like late blight and early dying. Temperature also plays an outsized role. As a cool season crop, potatoes have a very specific temperature range for optimal tuber formation, which occurs best when daytime temperatures are between 60 degrees and 65 degrees Fahrenheit and night temperatures fall below 57 degrees Fahrenheit. This sensitivity is a major concern in the face of climate change, as temperatures above 84 degrees Fahrenheit can halt tuber formation entirely, leading to significantly reduced yields and a degradation of quality. IV. Phase 3. The tuber's secret, days 60 to 90. The gardener's log, week 9. A sign of promise. Just as the plants reached a height where they were truly commanding their space in the garden, a new development occurred. Small, intricate flowers appeared at the tips of the foliage. The blossoms were a delicate mix of white and pale purple, a surprising burst of color on the sturdy green plants. This was more than a beautiful sight, it was a secret signal, an indicator of a critical biological transition happening beneath the soil's surface. The research explained that flowering is a sign that the plant has shifted its primary energy from the expansive leafy growth above to the quiet, powerful work of forming tubers below. While the flowers themselves may not be necessary for the final harvest, their appearance marked the beginning of the most important phase, the swelling of the stolons into the starchy treasures I had been waiting for. It was a moment of profound trust, knowing that the plant's visible actions were a direct reflection of its hidden, productive purpose. The great expansion, from stolon to spud. The third and fourth stages of the potato's life cycle are tuber growth and tuber bulking, respectively. This is when the true magic happens. A common misconception is that the potato is a root vegetable. However, it is an herbaceous plant that produces an edible, enlarged underground stem called a tuber. These tubers develop from specialized subterranean stems called stolons. The process of tuberization begins 5 to 6 weeks after the sprouts emerge. and is often signaled by the appearance of flower buds above ground. During this period, the tips of the stolons begin to swell, accumulating starches and sugars produced by the plant's leaves through photosynthesis. This accumulation process, known as tuber bulking, is when the potatoes enlarge and gain their full size and mass. The highest demand for water and nutrients occurs during this stage, making consistent soil moisture and temperature absolutely critical for a successful yield. The fact that these tubers form above the original seed piece on the underground stem, rather than below it like a traditional root, is precisely why the practice of hilling is so vital for gardeners. Without the protective mound of soil, the developing tubers would be exposed to light, turning green and toxic. The unseen struggle, pests and pathogens. Even with the right conditions, the potato plant is not without its adversaries. It exists in a constant, arms race, against a host of pests and pathogens. A struggle that has shaped its history and continues to challenge modern agriculture. Among the most devastating of these is late blight, caused by the oomycete Phytophthora infestans. This aggressive disease can spread prolifically on the wind, infecting foliage, stems, and tubers. The symptoms on the tubers are particularly insidious. A dark brown or purplish area on the surface that conceals a reddish-brown, granular rot that can penetrate deep into the tuber's flesh, eventually leading to a complete breakdown of the potato. Another common ailment is common scab, caused by the bacterium Streptomyces scabiei. While not as destructive as late blight, it is an unsightly blemish disease that significantly reduces the marketability and aesthetic appeal of the potatoes. The disease is particularly problematic when the soil is dry and alkaline during the critical 3 to 6 weeks after tuber initiation. This explains the importance of maintaining slightly acidic soil and consistent moisture levels to keep the bacteria in check. On the insect front, the Colorado potato beetle, CPB, is a major pest that can completely defoliate a potato plant. The life cycle of the CPB is a relentless assault. Overwintering adults emerge in the spring, feed on new growth, and lay clusters of bright yellow-orange eggs on the undersides of leaves. The larvae, which are voracious eaters, cause the most significant damage, stripping the plant of its leaves and stems. Combating these threats requires an integrated pest management (IPM) approach. For diseases, strategies include planting certified, disease-free seed potatoes and using long crop rotations to prevent the buildup of pathogens in the soil. For the CPB, gardeners can employ cultural controls like handpicking beetles and larvae, and using biological controls such as predatory stink bugs, ladybugs, and the naturally occurring fungus, Beauveria bassiana. The ongoing development of insecticide resistance in CPB populations necessitates a rotation of chemical and organic treatments to ensure their continued efficacy. Versus Phase 4. The final act, days 90 to 120. The Gardener's Log, Week 14. The Great Dig. After months of nurturing, the final stage was a surprising one. The vibrant green foliage I had worked so hard to cultivate began to yellow, turn brown, and die back. To a novice, this might look like a failure, a sudden decline, but the research had prepared me for this moment, explaining that it was a deliberate, final act of the plant, a signal that its work was complete. The plant was transferring its last reserves of energy from the foliage to the tubers below, and the hardening of the tuber skins was underway, preparing them for storage. Once the tops had completely withered, I waited for about 2 weeks, giving the skins a chance to toughen up for harvest. The act of digging up the potatoes was pure excitement. It was a treasure hunt, a tangible reward for all the patient waiting and careful tending. As I loosened the soil with a spading fork and gently pulled up the plant by its stem, dozens of cool, earthy potatoes were revealed, clinging to the root system. The satisfying weight in my hand, the earthy scent, and the beautiful, imperfect shapes of the homegrown spuds were a fitting end to the journey. The culinary canvas. Varieties and their uses. The immense diversity of the potato is best understood through its culinary applications, which are primarily determined by the tuber's starch content. Potatoes are broadly categorized into 3 types: starchy, waxy, and all-purpose. Understanding these classifications is the key to unlocking the potato's full potential in the kitchen. Starchy potatoes. such as the classic russet Burbank, have a high starch content and a dry, mealy texture. When cooked, their interiors become light and fluffy, making them the perfect choice for baking and mashing. The russet's dry flesh also makes it the ideal candidate for frying, as it results in a crispy exterior and a fluffy interior, which is why it is the go-to potato for French fries. However, their tendency to fall apart in water makes them a poor choice for dishes like potato salads or soups where a firm texture is desired. Waxy potatoes, including the red Norland and fingerling varieties, have a high moisture content and a low starch content. Their dense, creamy flesh holds its shape exceptionally well after cooking, making them the preferred choice for boiling, roasting, and adding to stews and salads. Their thin, delicate skin often doesn't need to be peeled, making them visually appealing and a versatile side dish. All-purpose potatoes, like the Yukon Gold and Kennebec, occupy the middle ground. They possess a medium starch content that offers a balance of fluffiness and structural integrity. The Yukon Gold, with its naturally smooth and buttery texture, mashes beautifully without becoming gluey and holds its shape well enough for potato salads. Similarly, the Kennebec has a balanced starch-moisture ratio that makes it an excellent choice for frying, baking, or roasting, yielding a golden, crispy exterior and a fluffy center. For sheer versatility, the Purple Majesty is unbeatable, retaining its rich color and offering a mild, nutty flavor that works well in baking, roasting, and mashing. Epilogue. The tuber's timeless legacy. The global catalyst, famine, population, and progress. The potato's history is a powerful narrative of its transformative power, but it is not without its tragic chapters. The tuber is widely credited with catalyzing significant population booms and urbanization in Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries due to its high yield and nutritional value, which provided a more reliable food source than traditional grain crops. However, this dependence created a perilous vulnerability that was brutally exposed by the Great Famine in Ireland between 1845 and 1852. The famine was not merely a natural disaster. It was a complex humanitarian crisis amplified by social, economic, and political conditions. The over-reliance on a single, genetically uniform potato variety, the lumper, made the entire crop equally susceptible to the fungal disease late blight, Phytophthora infestans. The widespread failure of this monoculture crop was compounded by ineffective government responses and the continued export of large quantities of food from Ireland, leaving a third of the population, which was almost entirely dependent on the potato, with no recourse. The famine's legacy was devastating, resulting in an estimated 1 million deaths and the forced emigration of another million, forever shaping Irish history and nationalism. This historical event serves as a stark cautionary tale about the dangers of a lack of agricultural biodiversity and the critical importance of a resilient and equitable food system. The modern potato and its future. The lessons of the past are more relevant than ever as the modern potato faces a new set of challenges, most notably from climate change. As a cool season crop, the potato is highly sensitive to rising temperatures, and research indicates that each 1 degree Celsius increase in average temperature during the growing season can lead to a 3 to 5% decrease in potato yield. Heatwaves, droughts, and erratic rainfall patterns reduce tuber size and quality, while excessive moisture increases the risk of fungal and bacterial diseases. However, the potato's inherent adaptability, honed over millennia, offers a path forward. The future of potato cultivation lies in a multifaceted approach that blends ancient wisdom with cutting-edge technology. Farmers in the Peruvian Andes have long used traditional practices like terraces for water management and the conservation of native potato varieties to build resilience. Modern science is now following suit, with breeding programs focusing on developing heat and drought-tolerant varieties with deeper root systems. Beyond traditional breeding, genetic engineering and gene editing are future-proofing the crop. Researchers have successfully introduced genes into potato plants that make them more efficient at photosynthesis, even during heatwave stress. In field trials, these enhanced plants showed a remarkable 30% increase in tuber biomass during a year with multiple heatwaves, all without compromising the potato's nutritional value. These advancements, combined with technologies like AI-driven climate forecasting tools that help growers optimize planting and harvesting schedules, represent the next chapter in the potato's long history of adaptation and its crucial role in ensuring global food security for future generations. Beyond the plate, the unsung hero. The potato's influence extends far beyond its role as a food source. In the United States alone, the potato sector is a massive economic engine, generating an estimated $100.9 billion in economic activity and supporting over 714,000 domestic jobs. Its utility is also found in surprising places, serving as a raw material for industrial applications like starch and adhesives. Even in the digital age, the humble spud has found new life, lending its name to technology and software. A browser extension called Search Potato and an AI-powered tool for scientific research are both named in its honor. A playful but clear indication of its widespread cultural presence and utility. The gardener's log, a final reflection. Standing in my garden, holding a basket heavy with the product of a season's work, I felt a deep sense of connection to the long line of growers who have tended this plant for millennia. The journey from those small, firm seed potatoes to the lush green canopy and finally to this bounty was a microcosm of the potato's entire history, a story of quiet struggle, unseen growth, and remarkable abundance. It was a tangible reminder that even in a world of complex systems, a simple act of planting, coupled with a respect for nature's processes and the lessons of science, can yield a treasure that nourishes and sustains. My respect for the potato had grown tenfold. No longer just a food item, but a testament to resilience, a cornerstone of history, and a hopeful symbol for the future.